Welcome to Climb English. If you enjoy learning English through stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Today, I will tell you a touching story. As you listen, you will also practice your English. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this emotional journey called The Lost Letter. It had been many years since I left my hometown. Life in the city was fast, busy, and cold. But now, I was finally going back to the place where I was born, to the house where I grew up, and to the only person who had always been there for me, my grandmother. I still remembered the small train station, the narrow streets, and the quiet lake at the edge of town. Everything was almost the same, but something felt different. As the taxi moved slowly through the foggy morning, I felt nervous for no reason. My heart was beating fast. Maybe it was because I hadn't seen my grandmother in such a long time. Maybe it was because I felt like something important was waiting for me. When I arrived at the front door, I paused. I took a deep breath, then knocked gently. The door opened slowly. The door creaked open, and there she was, my grandmother. Her back was slightly bent with age, her hair fully white now, but her eyes were still full of warmth. Tears welled up in her eyes the moment she saw me. "Oh, my sweet child, you're finally home," she said, her voice shaking. I stepped forward and hugged her gently. I could feel how fragile she had become, and yet her arms wrapped around me with the strength of all those years she waited. We went inside the house. Everything looked familiar. The old wooden table, the pictures on the wall, the smell of her cooking in the air. I sat on the couch and looked around, smiling. "You haven't changed anything," I said. She smiled back, and for a moment it felt like I had never left. Just then, a soft sound came from the kitchen. I turned my head and saw a young woman standing there, holding a tray with tea. She looked about my age, maybe a little younger. She had long, dark hair, and her eyes were quiet, thoughtful. She didn't say a word at first, just gave a small bow and placed the tray on the table. "This is Emma," my grandmother said softly. "She's been helping me around the house these days." Emma gave a small smile. "Nice to meet you," she said shyly. I nodded politely. "Nice to meet you too, Emma." But inside I was curious. Who was she really? Over the next few days, I began to see Emma more often. She was quiet, always working, always gentle. In the morning, she would prepare breakfast with my grandmother. In the evening, she would help clean the house or sit by the window, lost in her thoughts. At first, we only exchanged simple greetings. Good morning. Thank you. Good night. But slowly, something began to change. One afternoon, my grandmother asked me to go to the market with Emma. "I need a few things, and you two should spend some time together. It will be nice." I looked at Emma. She seemed unsure, but then nodded. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." We walked together through the narrow streets, past old shops and noisy children playing. At first it was silent, but then Emma started talking. Softly, carefully. She told me about her past, how she had come to live with my grandmother after losing her parents. I listened, surprised by how much sadness she had carried. I shared some of my stories too. She laughed at one of my childhood memories, and her laughter was soft and beautiful. For the first time in a long time, I felt light, free. When we returned home, the sun was setting. My grandmother was waiting on the porch, smiling as if she knew something we didn't. That night, as I lay in bed, I kept thinking about Emma. Her voice, her smile, her eyes. There was something about her that stayed with me. Days passed, and I found myself looking for Emma more and more. Her presence had become something I looked forward to. Her voice, her kindness, the way she cared for my grandmother. She had a gentle heart, and I felt something inside me begin to change. One evening, as we were washing dishes together, our hands touched. It was a small moment, but it made my heart beat faster. She looked at me and smiled, then quickly turned away. That night, I sat alone in the garden, thinking. I had never felt this way before. Not even in the city, not with anyone else. It was simple, quiet, and real. I knew what I felt now. It was love. The next morning, I went to the small jewelry shop in town. I bought a ring, not too expensive, but beautiful. I spent the whole day decorating the backyard with lights and flowers. I wanted everything to feel special. At sunset, I asked Emma to come outside. She gasped when she saw the garden. I took a deep breath, got down on one knee, and held out the ring. "Emma," I said, "I don't know how or when it happened, but I've fallen in love with you. Will you marry me?" For a moment,
But they were not tears of sadness. She smiled, nodded, and whispered, "Yes." I stood up and she threw her arms around me. I could feel her heart beating fast, just like mine. It was the happiest moment of my life. Just then, my grandmother walked into the backyard. She had probably heard Emma's voice. Her eyes moved from me to the ring in my hand, then to Emma's face. She froze. Her smile disappeared. "What is this?" she asked in a shaky voice. "What are you doing, both of you?" I laughed softly. "Grandma," I said, "I'm going to marry Emma. I love her." But instead of smiling, she took a step back. "No," she said firmly, "you can't. This is wrong." I was confused. "But Grandma, isn't this what you wanted? You introduced us. You brought us together. You were happy we spent time with each other." She shook her head. "I never meant for this. Not like this." Before I could say another word, she collapsed to the ground. Emma screamed, and I rushed to hold her. My heart was racing. I called the doctor immediately. The whole house was filled with panic. After checking her, the doctor said she had a mild heart attack and needed complete rest. No stress, no arguments. I sat beside her bed all night, unable to understand what had just happened. The next morning, my grandmother opened her eyes slowly. I sat beside her, holding her hand. She looked weak, but her eyes were still full of worry. Emma stood at the door, not coming in, her hand shaking. I leaned closer and asked softly, "Grandma, why did you react like that? I don't understand. You liked Emma. You were the one who brought her into our lives. Then why are you against our love?" She turned her face away. "Please, don't ask me this now," she whispered. "I just want you to forget about Emma." "I can't," I said. "I love her, Grandma. I want to marry her. Don't you see? I've never been this happy." Her eyes filled with tears, but she still didn't answer. That day she said very little. I stayed close, hoping she would explain, but she remained silent. Days passed. Emma avoided me, keeping herself busy with chores. The warmth between us was now filled with confusion. My heart ached. One evening, while cleaning my grandmother's room, I found a small wooden box under her bed. Inside was a letter with my name on it. The paper was old, the handwriting familiar. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It began with the words, "My dearest child, I never wanted to hurt you, but I have kept a secret all these years, a secret that now must come to light." My breath caught. I knew the truth was inside this letter. My eyes moved slowly across the page. With each word, the ground beneath me felt less real. The letter said that I was not my grandmother's real grandson. She had adopted me when I was just a baby, from a poor family who couldn't raise me. She raised me with love, never telling me the truth. But that wasn't the hardest part. She wrote that Emma was also brought into our home for a reason. After her parents died, my grandmother took her in, but not as a maid, not just as a helper. Emma was my cousin, the daughter of my biological mother's sister. That's why my grandmother had reacted that way. That's why she looked so afraid. She had tried to stop it before it went too far, but it was already too late. I had fallen in love with someone who shared my blood. My heart dropped. Everything had changed. The next morning, I packed my things. I couldn't look at Emma. She didn't know the truth yet. I told my grandmother I was leaving for a while. She didn't stop me. As the bus pulled away from the station, I looked back one last time. My heart felt heavy, but I knew it was necessary. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope it touched your heart and helped you practice your English. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe to Climb English. In the comments, write one sentence about what you learned today. I'll be reading your words with care.